This is a case involving twins. So, January 18th, 2024, a Pike County investigator got this case from Arkansas State Police Crimes Against Children Division because 3-month-old twins, fraternal twins, a boy and a girl, had been admitted to Arkansas Children's Hospital. Now, DHS already had custody of these twins. They took custody at the hospital, and both parents left the hospital. So the reason that DHS took custody of these twins so early on is because there were concerns about malnourishment, there were concerns about the injuries, there was concerns about neglect. So on January 18th, these twins were taken to their pediatrician's office in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Now, during that visit, the Hot Springs doctor called for an ambulance to transport the girl baby to Arkansas Children's Hospital for a full workup because injuries the baby already had. Now, it was found at Arkansas Children's Hospital that the girl had bilateral subdural hemorrhages, meaning hemorrhages on both sides of her skull, and also a torn frenulum in her mouth. And the report doesn't specify which frenulum, but from what I can see, the frenulum can be the piece that attaches the tongue to the bottom of your mouth, like that webbing, or it could be a piece that attaches your top lip to your gums. So I would think that the baby might have either been tongue tied or lip tied, but that was torn through some kind of injury. Not only the girl twin was taken to Arkansas Children's Hospital in an ambulance, the boy was taken to Arkansas Children's Hospital by vehicle by his dad, Michael Shepard. And unfortunately, when doctors checked out the boy twin, he had to be admitted to ICU because they suspected that he had skull fractures and also had brain bleeds. So the girl twin had multiple rib fractures that were in various stages of healing. She also had several fractures to like the lower parts of her arm bones and hands. Like, she had so many fractures that they actually did a bone density test to check her bone density to see if she had like a lower bone density, meaning she was more prone to having broken bones, and she tested normal. Of course, that was all in addition to the bilateral subdural hematomas and the torn frenulum. Now, the boy also had bilateral subdural hematomas. Now, the boy twin had, I mean, I'm counting at least 15 rib fractures that are listed that are in various stages of healing. He also had a couple of fractures to the bones in his hand. Now, I said that these babies were 3 months old, right? So, according to the physicians at Arkansas Children's Hospital, the injuries that these babies had were somewhere between 2 to 7 weeks old due to the level of healing that they had. They were listed as injuries caused by non accidental trauma that could have caused death. It was absolutely suspected that these injuries were caused by child abuse. They were the result of these babies being abused. Now, on February 1st, investigators in Pike County were able to speak with the mother, Cheyenne Hildebrandt. Now, Cheyenne was super vague when they asked her what happened with the babies, but she finally admitted that she has anger issues and she doesn't take her medicine like she's supposed to for the anger issues, which means that she grabbed the babies too hard on occasion. Told police that when the babies would cry, she would become angry with them and she would get more angry on top of that when her boyfriend, Michael Shepard, wouldn't help her. She said that she had, placed the baby too hard on the bed. She had kicked the baby. She said that she had grabbed and picked the babies up by their arms, also by their feet, dragging them to her. During Michael Shepard's interview, he did say that Cheyenne had major anger issues and he saw her be too rough with the baby. He saw her at one point throw the baby on the bed and then kick the baby, which, she admitted to. He said he didn't call the police when that happened, but when he found out that the babies had injuries, he and Cheyenne came up with a story together to try to eliminate them getting in trouble. And like, how sweet, he saw her beat up little defenseless 3-month-old babies, twins that were, sharing DNA with him and also, unfortunately, with her. And he decided that he would protect her and, F them babies. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic because it's mind-blowing to me. Michael Shepard was arrested on 2 counts of permitting child abuse, and Cheyenne Hildebrandt was arrested on 2 counts of first-degree domestic battery. They are both still being held in the Pike County Detention Center. Now, it shouldn't need to be said, but I feel like at this point I should probably say this. Being rough with a baby, treating a baby poorly because you're angry at it because it's crying, because it can't talk, and crying is the only form of communication that it has, isn't going to get a baby to stop crying unless you injure the baby to a point where, you know, it's suffering injury and isn't crying because it's so injured. So let's not do that. If you are having trouble handling your baby, maybe pass your baby on to someone that can give you a little bit of a break from that baby. Or if you don't have anybody, put the baby in its bed calmly and just take a breather. It's okay. I would rather you take a breather than to harm a baby. And I said breather. That doesn't mean leave the baby at home to go take a vacation or a trip to the store or anything else. Just a breather in a different room. Like 5 or 10 minutes, something like that. Just enough, just long enough to calm down. That would be my unsolicited advice, but please do not harm your babies. Because it's Child Abuse Awareness Month, I have chosen to speak about this case. On June 17th, 2023, police in Pine Bluff, Arkansas were called to the Jefferson Regional Medical Center in response to a child abuse report. When the officer arrived at the hospital, he was told that the 3-year-old who had arrived by ambulance had been transported to Children's Hospital. He found out that this 3-year-old, was transported to Arkansas Children's Hospital due to having first-degree burn injuries to a good portion of his body from his chest down. The child arrived at the hospital via ambulance around 3:30 p.m. The mom arrived about 30 minutes later in her own car. She had been working at the time of the incident. Now, the mom did not want the child treated. She said that she didn't see any injuries on the child, and not only did she not want the child treated, but when emergency room personnel tried to get her to approve the transfer to Arkansas Children's Hospital, the mom flat out refused. Now, the person that was watching the child when the incident occurred was Mr. DJ Shelton, and DJ was the mom's boyfriend. The story that DJ told a neighbor when he went to the neighbor's apartment to use the phone to call 911 was that he went into the bathroom to check on the 3-year-old that was taking a bath, and he found the 3-year-old laying under the water. He picked the 3-year-old up under the water, and he observed the 3-year-old shaking and saw his eyes roll in the back of his head. Later on that same evening, that same officer received a call from an Arkansas State Police Crimes Against Children investigator. Now, that investigator said that she received a tip about a 3-year-old who was brought into the emergency room there at Arkansas Children's Hospital, and he had suffered first-degree burns from his chest to his toes. So the same child. The child not only told investigators that DJ hits him while his mommy's gone, but the child also told investigators that DJ put him in hot water. The ASP investigator had a real problem with DJ's story because DJ's story didn't match the injuries that the child had suffered. So officers then went to the address where the injuries occurred on South First Street in Pine Bluff, and they asked for Savannah Owens, who was the mother of the child. Now, Savannah Owens and DJ Sheldon were living together at the time, and Mr. Sheldon answered the door, but he didn't give his name to police. He refused to give his name to police. He also said that Savannah Owens was not at the home at the time. Now, he was placed in handcuffs because he was, obstructing. And after he was placed in handcuffs, Savannah Owens stands up from behind the couch. Now, Savannah Owens, she's a real peach. You have to understand, Savannah Owens' child is sitting in the hospital while she's chilling at home with her boyfriend. So, of course, she tells police she was at Walmart whenever the incident occurred. She says that absolutely DJ does not hit her son. She said she checks over her son's body daily, which, if he's not hitting your son and you have nothing to worry about, Why are you checking his body daily? That doesn't make any sense. She told police that the ER staff continued to lie to her, but she couldn't say what they were lying about. And she told police that she wasn't hiding behind the couch. She didn't know that police were outside her home, and she was sitting on the floor behind the couch talking on the phone. She said she doesn't have to sit on the couch if she doesn't want to, which, okay, fair point, but like, I don't know. Sounds like a bunch of excuses to me. So police spoke to DJ Shelton, whose actual name is Dwight Shelton. Now, Dwight said that he woke up that morning and smoked. He said that Savannah Owens left for work around 1:30 and he was supposed to be watching the 3-year-old. He said that he went back to sleep and at some point the 3-year-old came and woke him up because he was hungry. He said that he got up, made the 3-year-old pancakes, and then he went back and lay down again. He said the 3-year-old came and woke him up again to tell him that he had an accident, like he had peed his pants. He said he asked the 3-year-old several questions and then he ran bathwater. He said he checked the bathwater for the temperature to make sure that it wasn't too hot. He said he put the kid in the bath, and the kid was in the bath for about 20 minutes. He said first he walked out of the bathroom, but then he went in the bathroom and he sat down while the kid was taking a bath. He said suddenly the kid just slipped and went underwater, and he was under there for less than a second before Dwight Sheldon was there to pick him up. But his eyes rolled in the back of his head, and that scared Dwight Sheldon, so he ran to a neighbor's and called 911. The ambulance came, transported the kid to the hospital. Now, Mr. Sheldon was asked, why would this little boy, this little 3-year-old, say that you hit him? And Dwight Shelton said that he has spanked him before, he has whipped him, but he doesn't hit him. So, according to the hospital, Arkansas Children's Hospital, where the child was treated, the child was covered in first-degree burns from his chest to his toes. He also had cuts and bruises all over his body. Dwight Shelton was arrested and charged with second-degree battery. The mom, Savannah Owens, and I use the term mom so loosely. A news article that I found said that she was charged with permitting abuse, but I was unable to find that information on Court Connect. So maybe she was charged, maybe she wasn't. I can't really say for sure. As for Mr. Shelton, his case is still ongoing. So back in March 2020, police responded to the Arkansas Children's Hospital after a 5-week-old baby girl was admitted to the pediatric intensive care unit after suffering injuries. This little baby had injuries to her brain. She had hemorrhaging in her eyes and bruising to both shoulders and her chin. According to doctors, she was also suffering from seizures. Police were able to speak with both parents. Mom said, "It wasn't me. I have been at work. Dad has been the one primarily caring for the baby." Dad said, "I didn't do anything. The baby has been fussy and crying all day long." Dad did seem to have a lot of excuses for the injuries that the baby had. The baby had an injury to her head. Dad said that injury could have been caused when he sneezed and his head hit the baby's head as part of the sneeze. According to Dad, the other injuries could have happened when he tossed the baby up in the air in an attempt to calm her, when he drug her around on the floor trying to play with her, or when he gave her a massage trying to make her feel better. He also said that her eyes could have been swollen because maybe she was allergic to the cat hair that was on his shirt. I mean, I am telling you, this man was not short on excuses at all. But all of his excuses, the doctor said, could not have caused the injuries that the child had. This child had hemorrhaging to both eyes, bruising on both shoulders, and bruising on her chin. And that's all in addition to a brain injury. When the mom was questioned by police, she told police that she felt of the infant before she left and felt like the infant felt a little hot. So she texted her husband to keep an eye on that while she was at work that day. At some point in the day, she got a text from her husband saying that he and the baby had bumped heads when he sneezed and that the baby, this 5-week-old, had a busted lip from that. Mom says she got home about 5:30. The baby, her daughter, was screeching and super fussy, so she thought maybe the baby had an upset stomach and she put her in a warm bath. When mom put the baby in the bath, she noticed that one eye was swollen and the other was quote unquote jumping around. She also said that the girl wasn't breathing right, so she took her to the hospital. When putting the baby in the car seat to take her to the hospital, she noticed that one of the pupils was enlarged. Now, according to both mom and dad's name is Eric Hedgewood, according to both mom and dad was the primary caregiver of the child after mom went to work, and mom had gone to work like 2 to 3 weeks earlier. So when baby was like 2 weeks old. Now, this little baby girl was not the only child in the home. There was an older child. And when police met with Eric Hedgewood, they also saw that the older child, a son, had a bruise that covered almost the entire left side of his face, from just below his eye down to his jawbone. Now, mom told police that her husband had told her that the boy had fallen down some stairs and then bumped into the coffee table in the same day. Now, obviously, police believe that that wasn't true. That's not actually what happened, but they did not file charges against Eric Hedgewood concerning the boy. They did, however, file charges concerning the baby girl. They filed a charge of first-degree domestic battery. Now, this case happened in 2020. From 2020 until the case was fully adjudicated in 2023, Eric Hedgewood set his butt in the county jail. Not only that, but his wife also filed for divorce from him. So good for her on that, for standing up for her children and divorcing him. Now, in 2023, Eric Hedgewood accepted a guilty plea. He pled guilty to first-degree domestic battery, what he was originally charged with, and he accepted a sentence of 432 months in the Arkansas Department of Corrections. That's 36 years, and he should sit there. Now, he will come up for parole in 2030. So, as we know, when a child in Arkansas is abused, they are taken out of their home by DHS and they are generally put in a foster home. Sometimes, eventually, they are put up for adoption. But what happens when the foster home that they are put in becomes a place of continued abuse? Now, this case is a little bit older. It's from 2017, but I think it's still important to talk about. So, back in March of 2017, there was a long investigation that was done by Van Buren County DHS in reference to abuse that was allegedly happening in a foster home. 4 children in the home reported physical and emotional abuse to DHS. So, at that time, the oldest child was 13 years old. That child was put into the foster home of Martha and Richard Roche as a foster child, but the child was adopted. Now, that child told investigators that after she was adopted, she underwent extreme and repeated cruelty by being fed bologna sandwiches and rice repeatedly. She was also intentionally burned with a curling iron, and she reported to doctors that she had severe back pain. Now, it was disclosed that the child had a history of trauma to their back. That history, what it is specifically, is not listed, but a CT scan was done, and the child did have the result of that trauma could be seen on a CT scan. Also, they were able to take photos of injuries that were consistent with what the child disclosed to investigators. The next child was around 12 years old at the time the investigation occurred, and that child disclosed that one of the defendants threw a glass at him. The glass hit the floor in front of him, shattered, and shards of glass cut him along his ankle on his left leg. There were photos of that injury that were also consistent with what the child told investigators. The next child in the home would have been about 10 years old at the time of the investigation. And that 10-year-old told investigators that one of the defendants actually stabbed him in the shoulder with a dinner fork that actually left a permanent mark on his shoulder after it healed. Photos were taken that were consistent with the injuries and what the child disclosed. The youngest child would have been about 8, and that child disclosed to investigators that she had been shocked in her quote unquote private area with a cattle prod by her adoptive mother. Now, all of these children told investigators that they were locked in their bedrooms, and when they slept on mats in the floor that were covered with a tarp because they wet themselves and their beds. The two oldest children were made to urinate and defecate in a large plastic paint bucket. It's okay though, because sometimes they were allowed to empty their paint bucket in the woods. All of the children reported that they were often made to wear plastic bags as clothing. They said their parents would cut holes in the top of the plastic bag for their heads to go and holes in the sides for their arms. That's all outrageous, though the parents probably denied all of those accusations, didn't they? Actually, no. The mom, Martha Roche, told police that she did lock the children in their rooms when she and her husband went to go feed the livestock. She admitted that she and one of the children got into an altercation. She admitted that during that altercation, she kicked the child's feet out from under her, and then the child hit the floor on her back, which caused those injuries I was talking about that were seen on a CT scan. She also admitted that she forced the children to take a bucket into their room and use that bucket as a toilet. Lastly, Martha Roche admitted that she had the children wear plastic trash bags as clothing, but only when she did laundry, which was every day. Martha Roche was arrested and charged with 4 counts of aggravated assault on a household or family member, 1 count of first-degree domestic battery, and 3 counts of second-degree domestic battery. And Richard Roche was charged the same. So the charges against the Roches were actually filed in 2017. In 2018, Richard Roche filed for divorce from Martha, and in November of 2018, he accepted a plea deal. He pled guilty to 2 counts of aggravated assault on a household or family member and was sentenced to 60 months probation. For her part, Martha was not given the same deal. In November 2018, Martha Roche accepted a plea deal. She pled guilty to 4 counts of second degree domestic battery, and she was sentenced to 10 years in the Arkansas Department of Corrections. This is a little bit of an aside, and maybe you would care, maybe you wouldn't, but as part of the divorce, Martha Roche asked to be returned to her maiden name, Martha Swafford, okay? She is in prison in Arkansas Department of Corrections as Martha Roche, but I guess her name is supposed to be changed back to Martha Swafford, but that's not enough for her. So Martha's name is Martha K. Roche, and in 2021, she actually petitioned a Pulaski County court for an official name change. She asked that her name be changed to Susanna Ruth Tuckerson. And the reason for this, the reason for her request, she actually wrote, was to keep down harassment from her ex husband, in laws, and persons from the community upon her release from prison. And honestly, I'll say it right now. I don't think a person who has been convicted of a crime of this nature or any crime against a child should be able to change their name, because then you, as a person in the community, you don't know who you're dealing with. Maybe you've heard the name Martha K. Roche, but Susanna Tuckerson, you don't have any idea who that is or what they have done in their past. And you certainly wouldn't want to allow a person like that around your children. But if you don't know the name, then you're really not able to take the appropriate precautions. You know what I mean? That request to change her name was denied because she's currently in prison. And let's talk about Martha being in prison. So, Martha was convicted of this crime in 2018. That's when she accepted the plea deal at the end of 2018. She only got 10 years. She would have been parole eligible, or was parole eligible, in 2019, but she wasn't paroled. The Arkansas Parole Board actually has denied her multiple times. She is currently sitting in the Arkansas Department of Corrections, and she just this month got another 1 year denial, meaning she won't be able to apply for parole again until this time next year. Now, she did get a major disciplinary a year ago for like insolence to a staff member. So maybe that played a part with her latest denial, but she's been denied so many other times. She was sentenced to that 10 years in prison. So technically, since she was arrested in 2017, if she got time served, any sort of time served, I would say that she will flatten her sentence in 2027 to 2028. And they can make her sit in prison that long if that's what they opt to do. And who knows at this point, maybe they opt to do that. Maybe they go ahead and give her parole in a year, who knows? It would be something to watch if you're interested in that case. So, I want to talk about Kamari Jones. Kamari was just 11 months old when, in August of 2020, she was critically injured by Kane White. So, on August 11th, 2020, Kamari's mom, Kenesha Jones, left her with Kane White, who was Kenesha's boyfriend at the time, for Kane to babysit Kamari. Just after midnight, so into August 12th, Kane contacted Kenesha to tell her that Kamari hit her head. Like she just fell and hit her head. Kenesha rushed home, and when she got home, she saw injuries on her child. She rushed her child to Baptist Health in Conway. The injuries that Kamari Jones sustained were so severe that she was flown from Conway to Children's Hospital in Little Rock. Now, you know how short a distance that is if you're familiar at all with Arkansas. And so it must have been an incredible emergency for them to do that. When Kamari got to Children's Hospital, they rushed her into surgery. And at that point, they didn't even know if she was going to survive. At this point, Kane was like MIA, right? They were able to contact his mother and give his mother like a message, have Kane call us. And Kane did eventually call police on August 12th. He agreed to meet police at a gas station. And Kane White agreed to speak with police, so he was taken to the Conway Police Department where he was taken to an interview room. So let's get back to Kamari for just a second. Kamari was an 11-month-old child, right? According to the physicians at Arkansas Children's Hospital, Kamari was hit so hard on the right side of her head that it caused a midline shift of her brain. So what that means is there is a natural part in your brain, right? A natural central line. She was hit so hard with such force that that center line was shifted over to where it was no longer in the middle. And I'm not a physician by any means or even a nurse, but according to Google, it takes a significant amount of pressure for that to happen, and it's not good. So then let's get back to Kane. So Kane White told police that Kenesha left him home alone with Kamari while Kenesha went to go pick up a friend from work. So not very long at all. According to Kane, during that time with Kamari, Kamari woke up and she was crying, probably wanting her mom. He said he tried to change her diaper, he tried to give her a bottle, and none of that calmed her back down. None of that got her to stop crying. So then he decided to quote unquote pop her on the right side of her head. After Kane popped Kamari, Kamari laid down and then started having trouble breathing. So he picked her up and then she just became unresponsive. Like she just went limp in his arms. Can you imagine how hard he had to hit her for that to happen? That poor baby. Kamari had a severe brain bleed. She had bruising to like her ear, the back of her head, that whole area where he would have hit her. She also had a liver laceration. So Kane White was arrested and charged with first-degree domestic battery, but the story doesn't end there, unfortunately. Kamari's story doesn't end there because Kamari Jones fought for her life for over a year. Kamari Jones battled all of the things for over a year, and her mom actually got to the point where she thought Kamari might be okay. She would need physical assistance, but she thought at least she would be alive. On December 17th, 2021, Kamari's battle ended. Kamari's life ended so short because of that traumatic brain injury, and Kane White's charges were upgraded to capital murder. Now, Kane White is still going through the court process, even 4 years after he injured poor Kamari. But Kamari's mom, Kanisha, is trying to heal from what happened to her daughter. Now, I do want to read part of Kamari's obituary to you because I think it's good to talk about the person that Kamari was and what the evil acts of Kane White took from this world. So Kamari's nickname was Nunny, and in this it says Nunny was courageous, bright, and a ball of energy. She had the most beautiful smile. She loved her big sissy and Bubba like no other. Nunny loved to watch Word Party. She would dance and coo her little heart away as she watched it. Her favorite food was loaded mashed potatoes from Chili's, Sissy Sonic Blast, and Mommy's Ice. She always argued with us from the moment she found her voice. To know Nunny is to know she was going to put a smile on your face no matter what. We all know Nunny's life changed August 2020. She touched even more hearts. Hashtag Nunny Strong isn't just a saying. Baby girl, you created a movement. Nunny, you've been through so much pain that now it's time for Mama to carry it. You can grow and play as God created you. We love you forever and always, baby. Honestly, that elicits so many emotions in me. As you know, because I've said several times, August is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and it is important to know the signs of child abuse and to report those signs to the authorities if you see them. Children often don't have a voice in this world, and they're dependent on adults to take care of them and make sure that they're going to be okay.
Today, I'm talking about Rayvon Smith. On January 10th, 2019, police were called to a home in Fort Smith, Arkansas over a child who was not alive. The child, the victim, was 5-year-old Messiah Hobby. Some of the information is a little bit difficult to understand because I think that news articles originally confused Rayvon Smith as being a male. But Messiah Hobby's mother was in jail for some misdemeanor in Fort Smith, and Messiah was staying with what I would assume is his stepmother, Rayvon Smith, who was in a relationship with Messiah's mother, Lazaria Jones. In the affidavit for arrest, it says that Rayvon was at the hospital screaming and yelling, asking to see her son, where she was told that her son was in a trauma room and that he was not alive due to his extensive injuries. Messiah had a lot of bruises all over his body, his teeth busted through his lip, and he had internal bleeding in his abdominal cavity. Rayvon Smith basically told the doctor that she didn't think it was that serious and she would have brought him if she thought it was serious. She said that she knew that he had like a cut, pretty deep cut on his cheek. And the lip where his teeth had came through. She said that she treated those things with alcohol and Neosporin because he didn't have insurance. So they didn't go to the doctor or the hospital unless it was absolutely serious for that reason. According to Rayvon, on January 9th, Messiah fell down the stairs in the home that they were living in and injured himself. His teeth busted through. And then she doctored that, but he didn't complain that he was really hurting or anything after he initially stopped crying. She did say that she doctored it and that she didn't want to make him feel like a girl. So she would just bandage up his wounds because apparently only girls get injuries that are serious. According to Rayvon, the next day on January 10th, there was some broken glass in the apartment that she attempted to sweep down the steps. She believed that Messiah tried to go up the steps and possibly stepped on a shard of glass that she missed and fell back down the steps and again had a larger wound to his mouth area where his teeth came through. She basically just said she gave him a shower, bandaged him up, and that then Messiah, Rayvon, and the baby that was in the home all laid down in the same bed to go to sleep. According to Rayvon, when she woke up, Messiah was cold to the touch. The medical examiner for Arkansas ruled the child's death a homicide due to child abuse. They did list Messiah's cause of death as blunt force trauma. Rayvon Smith was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. She did eventually enter a guilty plea for the first-degree murder and was sentenced to 336 months in the Arkansas Department of Corrections. At this time, Rayvon Smith's potential release date is listed as 2038 because Rayvon Smith has had several write-ups or major disciplinary actions in the Arkansas Department of Corrections and cannot keep herself out of trouble, it appears.